Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ba'd. So today we'll leave the questions till the end and we'll begin with Prophet Nuh. So Prophet Nuh, in English, his name is Noah, and his story is mentioned many times in the Qur'an. So if we go back to the beginning, Adam and Hawa, his wife, they had children. They were the first human beings. They had children. Their children had more children, had grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and many generations passed, and there were more and more people on earth. So they started moving in different areas. They started building cities and towns and villages. Even though there was some bad stuff that happened, people only worshipped Allah. People would lie, they would steal, they would cheat. Even we saw Cain even killed somebody, so even murder would happen. But still, despite all these bad things they did, people always believed in Allah. They never imagined that they're going to be worshipping anything else. But if you go back to the story of Adam, you'll remember that Shaitan promised that he's going to do his best to misguide people. And he had already convinced Qabil, by whispering to him, to kill his own brother. Now there's got to be some way he can get to the other children and descendants of Adam to make them do something even worse than that. So Shaitan comes up with an idea. He's going to trick the people into praying to idols instead of praying to Allah. Shaitan knows how Allah is going to judge people. He knows that Allah is merciful. And he knows Allah is so merciful he can forgive any sin if he wants to. But the one sin that he's not going to forgive is worshipping anyone besides Allah. So he decided that, I got to convince people to somehow do this so that they can go to hell forever. Because he hates Adam and he hates the entire human race. So if Iblis, if Shaitan has to go to hell, then so should they. So he's going to try his best. But it's not easy to convince somebody to start praying to someone else besides Allah. So if Shaitan came to people and he said, hey, why don't you worship this statue or worship this tree? People are going to laugh at him. So what are you talking about? Who is going to worship something that they made with their own hands? Or they're going to worship some random, animal or tree or something like that. So they can't move, they can't speak. It's not easy to convince somebody to worship an idol. So he had to come up with some very clever way to trick people into doing it. So in every community, there was always some very good people. They were righteous people. Righteousness means that you pray to Allah a lot, you're honest, you're intelligent, you're nice to everyone, you have good behavior. And so there were people like that in every community. And those people would help the poor, they're selfless, they're not selfish. So people admired them. People respected them. And when they died, people would naturally get sad. They said, hey, we lost a really good person today. So they missed them a lot. So Shaitan came and he started whispering to people. And he said, you know what? If you make a statue or you make a picture of that person that died, you can remember them. They were such a good person. You can look at it every single day. It's going to remind you of what a good person that was. So people said, that's a good idea. Let's do that. So they made some pictures. They made some statues of what kind of people though? Of good people, of righteous people, of people who were praying to Allah. And they started showing respect in front of these pictures because they respected those people. So eventually they started showing all this respect. They started kissing the statues. They started rubbing the statues and all that. And eventually, as time passed, people started praying to the statues instead of praying to Allah. Because you can imagine that the children, they saw their parents showing respect to the picture, showing respect to the statue. And eventually, if you don't teach the children why it is what you're doing, why do you do this specific thing, they're just going to say, well, this is what we're supposed to do. We saw our parents doing this. So they're just going to copy the same thing but not understand the underlying reason of why they were doing it in the first place. So they forgot eventually that the people who they made these pictures and these statues for, they were people who used to pray to Allah. They forgot that the people who they were praying, that they were worshipping, those people used to ask Allah. They used to ask Allah for protection. Anything they needed, they made dua and asked Allah. But instead, now these people started asking the idols. These people started asking the pictures for things instead of asking Allah directly. So this is probably how idol worship began, and that's where it happened with the people of Nuh. So let's begin with this next group of people. There was a town of people. There's many, many towns all around. This is just one of the towns. There was a town of people in the region of what we call ancient Mesopotamia. And Mesopotamia today is like modern day Iraq. So this group, this town, it had 5 main idols. And they had names for these idols, and they were worshipping these idols. There was 5. Wad, Suwa', Yaghuth, Ya'uq, and Nasr. These are 5 of the idols that they would pray to the most, and they probably had some other ones as well. And so they would be praying to these idols regularly, and Allah decided, we need to send this group of people a messenger to warn them to stop praying to these idols, because they're not supposed to be doing this. So how did Allah decide to do this? This is after Adam. Probably maybe some other prophets came in between. But in terms of the stories mentioned in the Qur'an, we have the detailed story of Adam, and then we have the detailed story of Nuh. So he's one of the earliest. So Allah doesn't speak to everyone individually. He didn't decide to go and communicate with every single person who's worshipping an idol and say, you know what, I am Allah, you need to stop. He spoke to Adam directly, but he didn't speak directly to Hawa, his wife, or directly to his children. So Allah chooses certain people that He's going to communicate with. And it's their job and it's their responsibility to convey that message to the other people, that this is what Allah wants you to do, or this is what Allah wants you to stop doing. So who does He pick? And there's a lot of people in the city. They are wealthy, they're powerful, there were some smart people, intelligent. When it comes to building a home, they're really good. When it comes to hunting, very clever. When it comes to farming, they know all the techniques. So there's people have different qualities, good qualities. You know, some people are very clever at certain skills. Some people are wealthy and they're good at business. Some people, you know, have power and they're good at leadership. But who did Allah choose to be a messenger out of all these people that He could have picked? He chose a man named Nuh, or Noah. So he was going to be the messenger. Now, why does Allah choose a person like Nuh? Because he's the best of the people there. Why? Because number one, he doesn't worship any idols. He's very nice to everyone. He's wise. He's truthful. He's patient. He has all these good qualities that maybe the rich person doesn't have. He has the qualities that maybe the skillful person who's good at farming or good at business or good at constructing buildings, maybe an expert in their field, but they don't have these qualities. So Allah chooses people with the qualities that He values the most in people. And Nuh had these qualities in him. So He chose Nuh to be the prophet. And so Allah revealed to him and told him, He said, Nuh, I am Allah, and I have chosen you to be the messenger for your people. So your job is to go and tell your people to stop worshipping these idols. And they should only be praying to me. They should not be praying to anybody else. So then what happened? So Nuh did it. And some of his people, they started making fun of him. So their response was, you know, yesterday, this guy, he was just a normal person like us. And now all of a sudden, he's telling us that he's a messenger from Allah. How did this guy change so quickly? You know, what happened with this guy? And then the rich people, the people who were wealthy, they started joking. They're like, couldn't Allah find anyone else besides this poor guy? There's so many rich people here, and He picked the poor guy. You know, Allah should have looked a little bit harder. You know, why would you pick someone who's poor to be your messenger? So they looked at it only from the perspective of, hey, the wealthy people should have been chosen. And then the people who were in positions of authority and power, they started making their own accusations. And they're like, hey, this guy, he just wants power. He wants respect, so he's making up this whole being a messenger thing. He's just pretending so that he can become popular. So everyone started giving their excuses. Other people, they started saying, you know what? He's just a man like us. He's just a human. He's like us. If Allah wanted to send us a messenger, He would have sent an angel. But He didn't send an angel. Right? Now, these people were wrong. And Allah explains in the Qur'an why they're wrong. In a way, Allah responds to them. So first of all, why didn't Allah send an angel? First of all, Allah can pick anyone He wants to. No one can go along and say, oh Allah, if you wanted to send me a messenger to stop worshipping idols, you shouldn't have sent a human. It was your fault. You should have sent an angel. No one can tell Allah what to do. Allah tells people what to do, not the other way around. But there's another reason. Why did Allah choose Nuh, despite the fact that he's human? Well, because if He sent an angel, Allah knows how people are. He wanted to be merciful to them. People are good at making excuses. So they would start complaining. And they'd be like, angel? We can't follow you. You're a perfect angel. We're humans. We get hungry. We get thirsty. We get tired. We get married. We have children. We get sick. One day we're going to die. You don't understand what it's like to be human. It's not fair that Allah sent an angel and now we have to somehow try to be like you. And it's funny because that's what people do today too. Sometimes when you say, hey, we should try to be like the prophets. The prophets, they're such amazing people. I can't be like them. We're not perfect like the prophets. So how about you try to be like the Sahaba, the companions? The companions, they were so good. They can't be like them. Anytime you bring an example, that's such a high standard to have. People will make excuses all the time, no matter what. So Allah knew that people are going to make excuses. They'd be like, sent an angel. So no, we're going to send a human just like you, and that's the one we're going to choose. So Nuh knew that their people were wrong. They're making these excuses. Why would Allah send you? Allah should have sent an angel. And He knew their responses are weak. And so one of their main common responses to Nuh was, well, the reason why we're worshipping these idols is because our parents worship these idols. And that's good enough reason. But actually, Nuh knew that their response is even weak. And of course, anyone should figure this out. Just because their parents or maybe their grandparents were doing this, it doesn't mean that the original ancestor going back was doing this too. So if you say, I'm going to blindly follow my parents, I'm going to blindly follow my grandparents because they're my parents and my grandparents and I must show respect to them. Well, what about their parents and their parents? What if they did something different and something better? So if you go all the way back, what was Adam worshipping? Adam was only worshipping Allah. And this is something that was invented later. So why should someone follow their parents or their grandparents if they're clearly wrong, right? If their parents lie and they steal and they cheat, should they be like, well, we follow what our parents do? No, of course not. So if you look at the children of Qabil, the children of the grandson of Adam, which people should they imitate? Their father or their uncle or their grandfather? Their grandfather is Adam. Their uncle is Habil, who was the one who was murdered and killed, and their father was Qabil. So which one are you supposed to follow? You don't just make an excuse and say, what, I'm gonna do this because that's what I saw my fathers and my parents practicing. So I'm just gonna blindly do that. So Nuh was trying to explain to them, that's not the way things work. That's not how you're supposed to live your life. That's not a justification, an excuse for doing what you're doing when it's something wrong. If it's something good, that's great, but not when it's something wrong. So after all of these years of preaching to the people, only a few people believed in Prophet Nuh. Most of the people that believed in him, they were pretty poor. They wore simple clothing. These were the people who were working in the fields. They were working as shepherds. And if you look at the wealthy people in his community, they owned businesses. They didn't have to use their hands. They didn't have a lot of physical labor involved. They wore nice fancy clothes. They lived in the large homes where the other people lived in small homes and all that. And that's really one of the problems, is that people who are wealthy and they're rich and they're powerful, they start thinking that they're better than others. So they start to look down upon them. Allah gave them wealth, but then they think, I earned all of this on my own. It belongs to me. So these people who were wealthy, they thought that they're the smartest. They thought that they're the best. So they started going and complaining to Nuh again. And they say, Nuh, we can't follow you because the poor people follow you. And if you get rid of, because that's just going to make us look bad. It just doesn't make sense to us that the poor people somehow beat us to the truth in something that's good. We beat them always. We decide what's fashionable. We decide what type of food is the best food. So we're going to decide what's right and what's wrong. So here's the compromise we're going to make with you. You get rid of the poor people and the weak people, and then we're going to believe in you. We'll consider believing in you. So they thought like this religion of Islam, of only worshipping Allah, is supposed to be for them, not for anybody else. Because no, if someone else is doing it, then they're not special anymore. So Nuh responded to them, and he said, I can't get rid of true believers. These are people who are genuinely believing in me as a messenger and believing in the message of Allah. So he says, I'm just a prophet. And my job is to warn people. My job is not to get rid of believers. My job is anyone who says, I want to believe in you and believe in Allah, I'm going to do that. So Nuh can't reject people just because they're poor. So because Allah knows what's in everyone's heart. Right? If Nuh abandoned these believers, Allah's going to hold him accountable for that. So Nuh responded to them and said, I can't do that. He said, my people, who's going to save me from Allah if I were to get rid of these believers? It's not something that, it's not even something that I can possibly do. They probably weren't even being genuine anyways. But this type of request, it means there is no compromise. If someone wants to believe in the truth, this was not a church where you can excommunicate members because you don't like them or because they didn't do what you wanted them to do. If they believe in the truth, they're believers. Simple as that. So Allah was angry with the people of Nuh. Nuh has been calling them, trying to convince them, explain to them. Allah created the world. He gave them everything that they need to live comfortably on this earth. But what do instead? They decide to thank the idols for everything they get. Anytime they get a blessing, they go and they thank the idols and they ask the idols for more. So Allah gave them so many chances. We don't have all the details mentioned. But they kept on refusing and refusing. So Nuh, he lived with his people for 950 years. This is mentioned in the Qur'an. And he's been trying to convince them to believe. Very few people are believing in his message. So how long is he going to wait? How many chances are people going to get? They've been getting chance after chance after chance. So Nuh has been so patient up until now with all the excuses people made, the insults that they were making against him. And so finally, Allah revealed to him one day and said, Nuh, I'm going to give you a message that starting from this point forward, nobody else is going to believe in you except the people who are already following you. So at that moment, Nuh is like, if no one else is going to believe, then forget this. So Nuh had enough. He's been suffering all this time. He's been patient with these people. So the people used to make fun of him. They used to mock him. They used to say, you know what, Nuh, where's the punishment of Allah? You said if we don't do something right, Allah's going to punish us. Show us the punishment of Allah. Come on, we want to see it. Bring it right now. So Nuh was really sick and tired of their bad attitude. So he finally made dua after Allah told him this. And he asked Allah, he said, oh Allah, destroy these people and don't leave a single one of these disbelievers on the land. Just destroy them all. So Nuh was enough. He's like done with this. So Allah accepted his request. He accepted his dua. So Allah decided He's going to drown all the people who rejected Nuh in a flood. But He wanted to save the believers, obviously. So Allah told Nuh, this is what you're going to do. You're going to start to build a really large ship. So he did it. Whatever Allah tells him to do, he's going to do it. He's a prophet. So he goes and he starts getting wood and he starts constructing and he's getting the other believers with him and they start to construct a giant boat. People would walk by and they would look at Nuh and they started making fun of him. They're like, what are you doing? Like, when did you become a shipbuilder? You never did this before. And they're like, don't you know that when you make a ship, you should build it near the water, not in the middle of a town? Nobody builds a ship in the middle of a city. Something's wrong with you. You've really gone crazy. Like, how are you going to get the ship all the way to the water? This doesn't even make sense. And what are you doing? Why would you build a ship? There's no water around here. So they kept on making fun of him. And Nuh is patient. But sometimes patience doesn't mean that you just endure people attacking you the whole time. So sometimes Nuh, he would respond. Allah taught us that response. Sometimes he would protect his own dignity. So sometimes he would respond back and he would say, you know what, you're making fun of us now, but soon we're going to be making fun of you. Like, just watch. And he left it at that. He didn't start yelling at them and shouting at them. But sometimes a believer, if you're getting made fun of, it's not always you just walk away and you're quiet and you just sort of like a wall and you say, nothing can hurt me, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It can hurt you. So sometimes you want to respond to protect your dignity. So he would respond sometimes to protect his dignity, but in a very dignified way. Meaning that, hey, when the flood comes, you're going to see what happens. And then kind of scare them off and they might be like, oh, okay, maybe, we'll see what happens. So finally, the flood does come. So it starts to rain. And it's raining, it doesn't stop. And so water is coming from the sky, and then water starts coming out of the ground as well. Because we have different sources. Our sources of water come from the ground, and they also come from the sky. So both of them simultaneously begin. So Allah told Nuh, He says, go take your family and take the believers and go into the ship that you had built. It was already done. It was constructed by this time. And Allah had also told him to be prepared that He's going to take a pair of every land animal with him in that area. One male and one female, and they're going to board the boat along with him. So Nuh, that city, they lived in a valley. And the valley means like there's hills on the sides and they're living down there. So the water level began to rise. If you've ever been in a valley, when it's raining really hard, it can flood very quickly. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. I was in 2005 when I went for Hajj. We were in Mecca and we were walking and we were in between these hills. So we were like right in the part of the valley and it started to flood and the water started just getting up. I jumped on a car and some people drowned in that time. So it happens. It happens even today. So this started happening, but on a massive scale. So, so the water level begins to rise. The houses started flooding. And the water started eventually covering the entire town of where Prophet Nuh lived. So some people, they started trying to climb up hills to save themselves. But these waves that would come, the water got so high and the waves were coming and it was basically just drowning everyone. There was nowhere that you could run. There's nowhere to go. But Nuh and the believers, they were inside this boat and the boat started, floating inside the water. So it's protected. Only those are protected. So when the boat started coming up and the water was getting higher, the Nuh saw his own son. And his son was not a believer. And his wife was also not a believer. Now sometimes this is pretty shocking for people. So they're like, wait a minute, he's a prophet. A prophet is supposed to have a perfect family. A true Muslim believer should have a perfect family with no problems at all. Yeah, sorry, that's just not the case. Not even the case of a messenger of Allah. His own wife didn't believe in him. His own son, perhaps partly influenced by his wife, his mother, was also not believing in him. So these things happen. This doesn't mean that Nuh is at fault. He's the messenger of Allah. Allah chose him for a reason. So now Nuh sees his son after the flood began. So when he saw him, he had just a little bit of time to talk to him. And he said, hey, my son, you should join us in the ship. Don't be with the disbelievers. You should come on board and, I'm here to protect you. So the son was very confident. He's like, don't worry, Dad. I'm going to climb the highest mountain. There is no way the water's ever going to get to me. Because the son of Nuh was a firm believer in cause and effect. He's like, I'm one of those scientific people. Never in the history of the world has water, according to my research, has it ever gotten so high that it could get to the mountains. I'm just going to get to the top of the mountain. Nothing like this is ever going to happen. I know all the stories and I know other communities and societies and stuff. Stuff like this doesn't happen. Don't worry, I'm fine. And he started, going out and Nuh saw him, he ran away. He didn't want to get on the boat. And eventually he tried to climb. A wave came, washed him away. And then Nuh was telling him before, he said, my son, nothing can save you from the punishment of Allah today. But he didn't want to listen to his father. So he ended up drowning in the flood. And so did the wife of Nuh. So they were both drowned. So Nuh was obviously very sad. Even though his son is a disbeliever, he's still his son at the end of the day. He has a very soft spot for his own son. So not only that, not only is his son going to die, but he's going to die as a disbeliever. So like if you think about it, he's going to be punished in the hellfire. That's worse than being punished by water in this world. So Nuh is sad because his son is dying. Anyone who loses their child would be devastated. But even worse than that, his son is going to die as a disbeliever. So what did Nuh do? He was very concerned. So he made dua and he prayed to Allah in sadness. He said, oh Allah, you promised that you're going to protect me and you're going to protect my family. He said, my son is part of my family. And I know your promise is always true. So what happened? Why couldn't you protect my son? He's probably asking Allah, like, bring my son back to me. Because you said you're going to protect him. Allah responded to Nuh and said, Nuh, your son is not part of your family. He's done many bad things. He's disbelieved in you. He's worshipping idols. So Allah told him, He said, do not ask me to do something that is wrong, because he deserves to be punished. So Allah responded to Nuh and said, this request is not only denied, but this request is inappropriate. You shouldn't even have made this type of request from me. So Nuh realized that he made a mistake, and he felt sorry for his disrespectful prayer. And so he said, oh Allah, forgive me. Allah have mercy on me for even asking you for that. I realized I should not even have asked you, because he realized it's wrong to ask Allah to make an exception for someone who is an evil person. You're not supposed to go and do that, because that's not right. It's like support the person who is doing wrong. You're not supposed to do that. That's against the rules. So Allah decides what's right and what's wrong. So the disbelievers were gone. The rain finally stopped. And so all the water sunk back in the ground, and the ship that Nuh built, it landed on a mountain, and this is known as Mount Judi. It's mentioned in the Qur'an as well. And we don't know exactly where it is. So Allah told Nuh, He says, now you can get off the ship safely. So the believers, they started a brand new community in that region of the world, and those people only prayed to Allah, and that concludes the story of Prophet Nuh. Alright, so now, I told you I'm going to leave the questions till the end. So here's the questions. They're not spaced, but that's okay. Usually I do one at a time. So we're going to go through this real quick. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change it up a little bit today. I'm going to let one person, a new person, try to answer the question. Whether you get it right or wrong, if you get it wrong, I'm just going to tell you the answer, because we don't have that much time before Maghrib. Okay? Alright, so question. Why are all people called the children of Adam? Somebody. This should be a pretty easy one. Yes? Explain that in English. Huh? They're all the sons of Adam, so they're called the children of Adam. Okay, because we're all from Adam. Good. Number 2. What was the first religion in the history of the world? Contrary to what your anthropology class will tell you in university. Okay, raise your hand. Somebody new. Yes, Hussein. Islam. Exactly. Islam, which means submission to Allah, surrender to Allah, belief in one God. Why did Shaitan want to tempt people and make them disobey Allah? Yes. Because he thought he was better, and he hates the children of Adam, right? Good. Is it easy to convince people to worship idols? And why? We have, people complain a lot about female participation, but somehow in this class, it's low, right, Cheryl Auntie? Okay, anyways, yes.
Because it doesn't make sense to pray to someone that can't do anything.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense to pray to something that can't even do anything, can't speak, can't help itself. Very good. How did people start worshipping idols after Adam? Probably, like super summarized. Okay, now male participation's gone too. Yes. Yes, exactly. Shaitan whispered to them to do what?
Worship their forefathers.
But how did it, like, what was the strategy that he used? There's one more detail I'm looking for, is to make pictures and the statues and show respect to those of the actual righteous people, and then eventually it evolves into idol worship. All right. What's worse in the sight of Allah, idol worship or murder? Well, the answer to that is idol worship. Why? Because you're violating the rights of Allah. Where do the people of Nuh live? It's an easy one. Yes. Iraq. Good. And what was it called in ancient times? Ancient Mesopotamia. Very good. You studied in school? Yeah, good. All right. Where did the people of Nuh live? As we just said that. How many main idols did they have? Yes. 3? No, not 3. 5. Can you name all 5? That's okay. It's okay. You don't need to memorize the names of all 5. Can any person become a messenger of Allah? No. Why? Very good. Allah chooses the people who have good values and good qualities, and only Allah can choose, right? Very good. All right. What type of people does Allah choose to be a prophet? Okay, we'll skip that one. So why did some people make fun of Nuh? What were some of the things they said about him? What are some of the ways in which they made fun of him? The what? Oh, yeah, prophet from a carpenter, you said? I can barely hear you, man. Can someone... You're a prophet and you're a carpenter. Oh, okay, when he was making the boat. Okay, what else? Okay, so same thing about making the boat. They made fun of him for making the boat. Before that, what are all the other things they said about him? Only the poor people followed him, right? What else? They said he himself was poor. What else? They said about the leaving the poor people, yeah? What else? They said, you're a human. You should have been an angel. You even made fun of him for being human. Right? And then what else? I mean, they just kept on. There's so many things. All right. Why did Nuh have to tell his people that he's not an angel? Okay, we kind of talked about that. Main reason. I'm going to select these questions because Maghrib's starting. How many people believed in Nuh at the end? A few. Yeah. I know some other sources say 40, but it's a few in the Qur'an. What did the wealthy people say? We talked about that. How do you respond? Why did the people of Nuh bring Allah's punishment? Why did Nuh finally ask Allah to destroy all the people who disbelieved, but he didn't ask that before? What made him change his mind? Somebody knew, yes. Exactly. Allah told him that no one else is going to believe besides those followers. Alright. Why did Nuh start building a boat? Because the flood was coming. Why did the people make fun of him? How did Nuh respond when the people made fun of him for building a boat? What was his response? Sometimes he would respond with something. Yeah.
And he said, one day you will make fun of you with the flood.
Exactly. So you're making fun of us now? One day we're going to make fun of you too when the flood comes. It doesn't mean they're actually going to make fun, but it's a way of responding back like, oh, you're making fun of us? Just watch what happens. Right? Who did Nuh bring with him on the boat? And what else did he bring? And why? Yeah. Okay, he brought animals with him. Good. And who else? Only animals or some humans too? Okay. He brought the believers as well. Alright? And so sometimes when you go into a bookstore, you see sometimes the Christian story of like the story of Noah's Ark. And I find it strange that sometimes you see all these birds on the boat. The birds don't need to be on the boat because they can fly. And then you see like a whale, and the whale and the shark, they're like little waving. It's like super cute cartoon. The whale and the shark don't need to be on the boat because they can swim. So I gotta be careful when he's only bringing the land animals on the boat because he doesn't need to bring the other stuff on the boat. And why did he bring one male and one female? They can procreate, exactly. So they're going to be able to start a new community. All right, and last question. Where did the boat end up? Yes. Mount Judy, very good. All right, I'll leave it at that. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
One question. I know, I have to believe in all of this, but what actually happened? Like, why did people who believed in Noah at the very beginning, what occurred? Like, what did he manifest to make them believe? Because I'm thinking of our times now, somebody came along and said, I'm a prophet. So what?
Okay, so why would people believe in Nuh at that time? So there's two main things. Number one, they knew that idol worshipping is wrong, and that's what the people were doing. So rationally, they can figure out that, hey, this guy's preaching a message that actually makes sense to us. And number two, they would look at him as a virtuous person. So he's a person who practices what he preaches. He's preaching all good values. So everything indicated from his character, as well as the internal consistency of his message, that he's telling the truth. And that's why they believed in him. Okay? Other questions? Going once? Why didn't the other people believe in him? Well, their number one excuse was, we follow what our parents did. So they were already on idol worship. And then the rich people, they're like, we're rich. Prophets should have come from us. This guy's poor. So all the excuses they made are among the internal spiritual illnesses of why they wouldn't believe in him. Because what happens is people have the ability to think for themselves, but their spiritual illnesses overtake their rational ability and causes them to have an emotional response and then not do what they're supposed to do, even though they see the truth in front of them. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.